Fantastic. Oh man, oh man, oh man. My topic today with you is fabulous family lessons out of the Old Testament. In fact, the lesson that I want us to learn today is maybe one of the most important lessons that we can garner from the Old Testament about family. And so I'm excited for where we're going. Now, some of you are single, and you're going, is it time for me to take a nap? No, it's not. In fact, I want to tell you, friends, those of you who are single, the wisest among you are going to actually drink this in more than even those that are married. Because wisdom is, I wish that I would have had the teaching that I'm going to give tonight and next week when I was a young father and a young married. Some of you are newly married, and some of you have been married a long time, and some of you are grandparents. How many grandparents we got in the room? Hardly any. Fantastic. I'm glad you're with me. No, we've got several, and that's wonderful, and bless you. This is for you as well. Now, the problem is, and this is one of the great things, you know what? One of the things that I love about my Filipino brethren, my kababayans, I love the way you guys love family. And you know what, Pastor Jeff and Rowan, I'm sorry. Where did I come up with that? I don't know. It's like, I've been up since early. Sorry, Rowan. One of the things I love about their leadership is their commitment to family. I love about the fact that they see family first in the sense of family is your first ministry. And I love that. I honor that. That is so wise. And I love the commitment that you have to your marriages. You guys work so hard. I know you do. I mean, I am literally blown away by the effort you put into your marriage retreat. And that's part of what God is blessing here. But if you're single, don't feel left out. And here at the same time, I know that when we talk about family, for some of us, it triggers us. Because for some of us, we've got some family things that we wished we didn't have. We've got family issues. Some of us have got estrangement from family members we haven't talked to. And so you're talking family and it's like, And yet family is at the heart of God. I want to tell you, though, at the heart of God is the family of God. Not the nuclear family, the family of God. This is at the heart of God. But I don't want to take away from the fact that God cares about our nuclear family. Because that's the core of so much of what happens. I was here on Father's Day. I was in Alberta on Father's Day just a couple of weeks ago. We were in Red Deer, and this is our middle son. He was just installed as the senior pastor of Crossroads Community Church in Red Deer on Father's Day. What a great day. And he came and he wrapped his big old arms around me and hugged me while we were worshiping, and he just spoke life over me. And those are his daughters there. Such a blessing. Here's what I want to do for you today. Are you ready to go to school, church? Now, some of you just got out of school and you're going like, what? Go to school? What are you talking about? I want to take you to school a little bit today. Can I do that? In fact, what I want to do for you today is I want to give you a walk through the Old Testament. I'm going to give you a 30,000, maybe a 50,000 foot level overview of the Old Testament. Some of you go, I don't get the Old Testament. Some of you go, I'm not sure what it's all about. I know there's a lot of great stories there, but what is it all about? And I'm going to walk you through it and talk you through it in just a few minutes. Quite frankly, I'm going to give you this overview because I want to bring you to the message that we need to learn from the Old Testament. What I'm going to do as well here is that I think I was one slide behind there, wasn't I? These are a couple of my grandsons. I have trained most of my grandchildren in how to do this walkthrough, and they're gonna get me started. So in less than 1 minute's time, my grandchildren, 2 sets of them, are gonna walk you through and talk you through all of the major events of the book of Genesis and who's in it in less than a minute. Check this out.
Creation of the world, fall of man, flood of Noah, dispersion of the nations. God called Abraham out of the Ur and the Chaldees.
Abram has 2 sons, Ishmael, Isaac. Isaac has 2 sons, Esau, Harry, Jacob, Smoot. Jacob has 12 sons and 1 daughter. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Joseph, Egypt, Jews, Egypt.
400 years bondage. God raises up a deliverer. Let my people go. Let Pharaoh know. Yes.
Hey, where are you going?
Am I done?
No. Okay, those little kids are growing up. That's one of those little boys. He's 15 years old. He's at camp right now as we talk. He's just coming home from camp. In 2 weeks, he leaves for a mission trip. It'll be his 3rd one. He said to me just a few months ago, he said to me, "Papa, it must be really cool." I said, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" He said, "It must be really cool." He said, "You discipled our dad. You trained him in the faith. And now you're watching our dad train us." I thought it's really cool that you actually recognize that as a 15-year-old. There's his brother, the other guy that was in there. 17 years old, he was just leading us in worship, the whole family. In 2 weeks, he leaves for the Dominican Republic for his 3rd mission trip. Friends, when we train our children and our grandchildren, and those little girls have grown up as well. They were all on the platform praying for the whole congregation, all 3 of them, each one of the 3, prayed in front of the whole church for fathers and grandfathers and those who were hurting in relationship. And then the youngest one specifically prayed that God would grant her own father great grace and great mercy as he steps into this role. It was a beautiful, beautiful, and powerful thing. Now, I should have had a blank slide here. I'm seeing that I don't. So here's where we're going to go from here. I'm going to pick back up from the book of Exodus. And I'm going to walk you through Exodus to Deuteronomy right now in just a couple of minutes. So they left up with God raises up a deliverer, Moses. Moses goes before Pharaoh and he says, "Let my people go." The Pharaoh said no. God said, "Okay." And so he sent the 10 plagues. This is the lice. But the last plague was the Passover angel. If the families believed in God, they painted their house, the doorpost of their house, with the blood of a lamb. The angel passed over the houses that were covered by the blood. Does that ring any bell to you? As the blood of Christ is what covers you and I. It was that last plague that resulted in them, the Pharaoh letting them go, and they went through the Red Sea, remember? The Red Sea is the greatest miracle in the Old Testament, most powerful miracle in the Old Testament. And then from the Red Sea, they end up at Mount Sinai. It was at Mount Sinai that Moses was given the law. The law has 3 parts to it: moral, teaching us what's right from what's wrong, what's good from what's bad; civil, teaching us how to deal with each other in relationship; and ceremonial, which has to do with the law of worship, how to actually worship God properly. They worshiped in tabernacles initially, and the tabernacles were served by the Levites. These are people, in case you're wondering what I'm doing. Levites and priests. The Levites and priests would do the offerings, and they would oversee the feasts. Then we get to the book of Numbers, and in Numbers, they counted all of the faces, everyone that was in the tribes, at Kadesh Oasis. Then Moses took the people to Moab, where he gave them the second law, which is Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is a retelling of what's happened from the beginning. And then Moses goes to Moab and he dies. He doesn't get to take them into the promised land, essentially because of his anger issues. So God raises up Joshua, the next in line. Joshua takes the people over the Jordan to the place of Jericho. And you remember that Jericho was a city with fortified walls, and God called them to march around the city once every day, and then on the seventh day, they marched around 7 times, and what did they do? Anybody remember what they did? We're going to school here. We're learning about the Bible. Amen? They blew trumpets and they yelled at the top of their lungs, and God miraculously, through their faith, it wasn't because they yelled, it was through their faith that then God brought the walls down, right? So they're now starting to enter the land, the promised land. That's a big deal in the Old Testament. It's a big deal to this day. In fact, much of the challenge that we have in the Middle East is over the promised land. You understand that? They sent out, they actually divided the nation north and south, and they divided it into the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes are all, as you learn from my grandchildren, the sons of Jacob. 12 tribes, they divided the land, and then they began to settle the land. Now, they sent out 12 spies to go into the land to see what the land was like. This is a really critical lesson to take in and learn. 10 of the spies came back, and they said the land is luscious. The grapes are gigantic, the pomegranates, everything is lush, it's fabulous, it's fantastic. But then the 10 said, they have giants, and the cities are fortified. And they gave a bad report, and 10 of them said, no, we can't go. 10 of them lacked faith, 10 of them lacked trust. Listen, friends. Whenever God calls you to do something in your life, and He's calling every one of you, He has things for you to do. The fact is that it'll be greater than you. It will be beyond you. You'll have to trust Him because it will never look like you can do it. 10 of them said no. 2 said go. Their names were Joshua and Caleb. They said, yes, in fact, the cities are fortified and there are giants. But if God called us to do this, then we must by all means trust God and go. Now, the amazing thing about this is, and this is a great lesson for us to learn, is that the lack of faith of those 10 leaders brought a judgment on the nation of Israel. So God caused the nation of Israel to wander in the wilderness 1 year for every day that they were in the land. They wandered how many years? Can anybody shout it out? 40 years. What was the purpose behind that? The purpose behind it was that all those unbelievers would die, because God didn't want to move forward with their unbelief. This is a critical lesson that fits in the whole thing, okay? We come to the period of judges. The judges were people like Gideon, Samson, Jephthah, Samuel, Deborah, all judges. A very, very challenging time in the nation of Israel. And in fact, it's characterized by one verse, 17:6. It says, everyone did that which was right in their own eyes. There was anarchy and chaos, and people were worshiping however they wanted. And then the people came to the place that they said, we don't want God to be our king. We want a king that we can actually see. We want a king that we can actually talk to. And so God actually said, okay. And that's where we come to this place. It's the period of United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, there were 3 kings, Saul, David, and Solomon. Each of them reigned, ironically, for the same amount of time. So the United Kingdom lasted 120 years. The United Kingdom then divided. Oh, first of all, I need to let you know that in terms of their leadership, Saul had no heart for God. In other words, he wasn't a follower of the Lord. He did his own thing. He operated his own agenda. His leadership was about him. David, however, had a whole heart for God. He loved the Lord like nobody else. Solomon had a half heart. Then we come to the period of the divided kingdom. The nation of Israel divided in the north and the south, Israel in the north, Judah in the south. Israel had 19 kings. You read about the kings in the books of 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Judah had 20 kings. Now here's the amazing thing. Out of the 19 leaders, think about them in terms of leaders. Of the 19 leaders in Israel, there was not a single one that was good. Out of the 20 kings in Judah, there was only 8. Well, you say, my goodness gracious, what are we even talking about here? Why would God allow the kings to not follow him? Is that a good question? Might that be baffling? The same way he would allow you to not follow him. God has honored us all with a free will to either follow him or go our own way, no matter who we are. But he's been gracious to us, hasn't he? Now, during that time, when those kings were doing their own thing, God raised up this group of people that he called the prophets. The prophets, which are all the books in your Old Testament to the end, there is 16 of the prophets. The prophets would speak to the kings. Are you with me? Am I losing anybody? Is this too much school? Because I'm heading somewhere. I need you to stick with me. Are you sticking with me? Because I'm gonna bring this to a place that's gonna get you. Oh, did I tell you the punchline? The prophets speak to the kings, okay? They bring a message. There's two sets of prophets. There's the major prophets that are big, and minor prophets that are small. What I mean by that is the major prophets are books in your Bible that go to as many as 60 chapters or more. The minor prophets are all smaller. They're the last 12 books in the Old Testament. Their message is not big and little. Their message is all the same. And what was the message? Basically, the prophets went to the kings and they said, shape up or God's going to ship you out. Get your life together. Get your act together. Come back to the Lord. Follow the Lord. Serve the Lord. Seek the Lord. That was their consistent message. Okay? The kings didn't repent. So God brought a nation. Listen, friends, there's stuff to be learned about everything. God works through nations to bring judgment when his people are not doing what they should be doing. He brought Assyria into the north, Israel, and he scattered the people all out of Israel. But in the south, he brought Babylon, and that's where Babylon gathered all the people from Judah and brought them to Babylon. Just a few were left. That's where we get the book of Daniel. one of the most powerful prophetic books there is in the Bible, okay? Now, what they were telling them is, if you don't turn, if you don't listen, if you don't follow, then you're going to end up in captivity for 70 years. And that's exactly what happened. And that's the heart of the lesson that I want to now dial in. Was it God's will for the people of Israel to be in captivity and judgment? Do you know that everything about their life changed? They no longer had any decision-making capabilities and capacities. They were under complete control by the Babylonian people. They suffered under the Babylonian people. Their identity, the Babylonian people tried to remove their identity. They renamed them. They tried to force them to worship other gods. It was a dark time. Was that God's will? Was that what God wanted? No. Okay, well, you might be saying, where's this going? And what does this have to do with family? There is such a lesson. Everything that happened in the Old Testament has happened in the New. Just different. Everything that happened to the people of Israel is happening in the church today. So the question that I want to raise is, how did they get there? How did they get there? How did they go from seeing God do miracles? How did they go from loving the Lord and worshiping the Lord to actually being in a place that God had to bring his judgment over their lives? What ultimately went wrong in Israel? Well, one of the major prophets, Jeremiah, in the Old Testament, gives us a picture for what was happening at the time that God had to bring the judgment. Listen to what it says here. It says, the children gathered wood. The fathers light the fire, and the women knead the dough and make cakes to offer to the Queen of Heaven. What I want you to see here, friends, is that the entire family is now worshiping idols. The children, the fathers, it's a family affair, but it's not for God. Look what it goes on to say. The Queen of Heaven, do you know who the Queen of Heaven is? There is no Queen of Heaven. The Queen of Heaven is an idol. The Queen of Heaven is known by the name of Ishtar, Ashtoreth, the goddess of sex and the goddess of love and immorality. Israel, the people of God, the children of God, are worshiping as family units the demons. And you and I have to ask ourselves, how does that happen? How did that happen? They got to see all the miracles. They saw what God did. They were given the law. They were given the land. They watched God do all this crazy, great stuff, right? Now, notice here. They pour out drink offerings to other gods to arouse my anger, God says. But am I the one they are provoking, declares the Lord? Are they not rather harming themselves to their own shame? In other words, here's what I want you to understand. When you and I go south, when you and I actually do things sinful, you're not affecting God. He's not like going, oh, that hurts me. Your sin only hurts him because of what it does to you. Every time you and I choose to go in our own direction, it harms us. It doesn't harm him. What harms him is it breaks his heart because he cares about you. Because he wants your life to flourish, and he wants my life to flourish. So when we ask the question, what went wrong? How did it go wrong? Are you with me? I want to answer that for you. Was it the prophets? Did they do what was wrong? Well, we know from reading the Bible that there were false prophets. But no, they weren't the answer to what went wrong with Israel. Was it then? Was it the priest? Were there bad priests? Were there bad pastors? Yeah, there were bad pastors, but not all of them. And when we look at what went wrong and what went sideways in the nation, it wasn't the priest. Was it the kings? Well, I've already told you that there were a lot of bad kings. But the problem doesn't come back even to the kings, even though there were. The answer is somewhat shocking. What led to the downfall of the nation of Israel? It's somewhat shocking, and it's actually totally wonderful. And we find it, the answer, in the final book, in the final chapter of the Old Testament. We find the answer getting revealed to us by the prophet Malachi. In the very last chapter, this is what the prophet says: "Surely the day is coming. It will burn like a furnace. All the arrogant and every evildoer will be stubble, and the day that is coming will set them on fire." You're getting the picture. This is harsh. This is challenging. This is hard to even for us to hear. But God has no other way he can respond. The people are worshiping demons. He says the Lord Almighty, "Not one root or a branch will be left to them. But for you who revere my name, you who trust me, you who love me, you who seek me," and there were those people, "the Son of Righteousness." Now, interesting, this is not S-O-N, it's S-U-N. The literal Son from the earth will rise with healing in its rays to your life. And you will go out and frolic like well-fed calves. Those of you who follow me, those who you love me, those who you respect me, those who you revere me. How many of you even know what the word frolic means? Have you ever heard the word frolic? It's an old word. But frolic is you're going to dance around. You're going to just go crazy. You're going to be out just like you're a calf, just jumping around and having fun. Those who trust me. Then you will trample on the wicked. They will be ash under the soles of your feet on the day when I act, says the Lord Almighty. Now we're zeroing into the answer of where the problem with Israel came. He says, "Remember the law of my servant Moses, the decrees and the laws I gave him at Horeb for all Israel." And then he says this important thing: "See, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before the great and dreadful day of the Lord comes." Now, friends, the great and dreadful day of the Lord was not the captivity. The great and dreadful day of the Lord is still coming. He says, "I'm going to send my messenger." And what's that messenger going to do? What's going to be his message? He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the hearts of the children to their parents. And if he doesn't, or else, and if he doesn't, I will come and strike the land with total destruction. I can't tell you how important being parents is to God. This is bringing us to the place of helping us to see that where the problem lied was not with the prophets, not with the priests, not with the kings. Guess who was responsible for the demise of the nation of Israel? The parents. Not the prophets, Not the priests, not the kings, the parents. And why would God say that if the parents don't actually turn their attention towards their homes and their children, why would God say if the parents don't do that, then I'm going to strike the land with devastation? Because, friends, if the parents don't turn their hearts to their children and give the attention that their children need and the training that their children need, then it's all for naught. You understand, if faith is not transferred to the next generation, there will not be a next generation. It's all a waste of time. So we could grow this church to be 10,000. And if we're not training our families, and we're not training, if our families, our parents are not actually intentionally and directly training their children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord, they're going to fall away. They're going to end up worshiping idols. They're going to end up worshiping and doing things their own way. That's the message and the warning to us in the church today that it brings. Their failure to train their children was ultimately the undoing of the nation of Israel. Now, I said it was shocking and wonderful. And the reason why I said it was wonderful is because the best research still confirms that a parent is still today the most influential person in a child's life. The prime minister is not the most influential person in your children's life. I want to tell you something. Pastor Jeff is not even the most influential person in your children's life. Their teachers are not the most influential. You're the most influential. They will end up doing in life either good or bad based on one thing, largely. You. Now that's pretty heavy to have to deal with, isn't it? And some of you might be sitting there arguing with me in your head and in your mind and your heart, saying, I don't have that kind of influence. My kids don't even listen to me. Is anybody thinking that in their mind? There would be only one reason why you don't have that kind of influence. Because you gave it up. God gave it to you. It is inborn, inbred, inbuilt by God that you have the position of greatest influence. If you will actually take that and do it according to, listen, the devil knows you got influence. World leaders have known that the greatest influence, the way to shape and change a nation is with the youth, not with the older people. Why is it so many of us parents struggle to realize that God has given us great power with our kids to shape, to guide, to lead, to direct? As I start to round the corner and head towards home, yes, I am heading towards home, I want to take you to one more passage. It's the most central passage in the Old Testament. If there was anyone of a Jewish or Orthodox Jewish background here in the church today, and I were to ask them, what's the most central passage in the Old Testament? Most significant? Is there any one that you would cite? They would tell you, yes, there is. I'm going to take you there right now. And I want to let you know it has everything to do with parents. The most central text in the Old Testament is found in Deuteronomy, the second law that Moses gave. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Verses 1 to 7. Now, I've cut out verses, or have I? No, I've still got them. Good, I'm glad I kept them in there. I was worried about time. In verse 1, Moses says, these are the commands and decrees and the laws the Lord your God directed to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. Listen, friends, the land was not going to make them special. Even though the land was fabulous, it was incredible, it was fantastic, it was not going to make them special. The laws and decrees were what was going to make them set apart as a people. Then the land would only become a rich, deep resource and blessing. He goes on to say, so that, here's the reason, so that you, know what it says, your children and their children after them may fear the Lord. That's at the heart of success. The Lord your God, as long as you live by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Then we get to the heart of the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. It's interesting because you and I think that Jesus is the one that actually said that. This comes from Moses. Jesus was asked in the Gospels, teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? What I love about Jesus is he didn't say, hey, there's a lot of commands, they're all great. No, Jesus said there is one. And he quoted Moses. This is the greatest commandment. And I want to note who it's to. Look what he goes on to say. He says, these commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts, not in your mind, on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Now I want you to notice he's actually giving you a template for how to raise your children in a very natural kind of way. When do you talk to them about the Lord? When do you talk to them and teach them how to love God with their mind and their heart and their strength? When they sit, when they walk, when you lie down at night before they go to bed, and when they get up. You're taking those opportunities to sow into their life about the goodness of God and the blessing of Jesus in their life, okay? Now look what he goes on to say. These commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts, and as I already said that, but the idea is to start a conversation with your children that never ends. It isn't that that's all you talk about. Listen, it's important that you talk about the Oilers. It's important that you talk about paddle boarding and Zumba and do those things. But these conversations start and stop over things that are happening in their lives all the time that you're trying to sow in and help them understand. Here's a strong statement. Our failure to train our children today, if we fail to do that, friends, in the fear and the nurture and admonition of the Lord, will ultimately lead to the undoing of the church. If we fail to train them into how to know the Lord, how to love the Lord, how to serve the Lord, we will not have another generation. It's critical. And the shocking and wonderful thing is, if you're a parent here today, the beautiful thing about it is that you're the most influential person in your child's life. Are you using that influence for God? Now, as I start to really zero in and start to, the tray tables need to be up and your seat belt needs to be on because we're going to start to land. I'm wondering whether as I'm talking, if any of you are experiencing some of these feelings, or any of you feeling uncertain, maybe apprehensive about parenting. Some of you might be young parents right now, and frankly, you're afraid. You're uncertain. You're worried that you're going to blow it. Some of you dads, you don't know how to be a dad. Some of you moms are feeling quite overwhelmed, apprehensive, maybe even afraid, maybe anxious. Like, am I going to blow this? There isn't a parent in this room that doesn't want to do well. Not one. And yet so many of us, we don't know what to do, right? How do I do this? How do I actually keep my children from falling away? What do I do? Well, here's the thing, friends. I want to leave you with some confidence. It isn't rocket science. Here's the crazy thing. It's not rocket science. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't even have to have come from a good family or a good home. The amazing thing is that the wisdom of God can be in your life no matter who you are. You can impact this world for Christ by raising kids who know and love Jesus. Now, here's the amazing thing, friends. The Shema is as powerful today as it ever was. These principles work as effectively today as they have ever worked. Therefore, you and I, this is the pattern that they used when they were at their fullest place in the Lord and when they were doing the will of God. If you use the principles of the Shema, they will produce the same powerful fruit that they have for centuries. Number one, 4 simple things I'm telling you parents to do. The Jewish understanding was that parents, not the priest, not the king, not the prophets, the parents had to take responsibility for the spiritual training of your children. Listen, can I tell you something? You cannot, and I say this very carefully because I have all the respect in the world for this church and the leadership of this church, but this church cannot train your children spiritually. They will assist you. They will come alongside of you. They will encourage you in every way, but they can't do the job. Only you can. So you, in your heart, have to decide we're going to take responsibility. We're going to be the first line of education and training spiritually for our kids. Number 2, the training needs to be centered around the authority of Jesus in our children's lives. What do I mean by that? We are teaching our children that Jesus is God. He made us. He's the authority. We look to Jesus for every decision in our lives through His Word. Then, number 3, you've got to actually help them understand how to take what they learn from the Bible and integrate it into their everyday life. This is where it can get lost. Some of us have the mentality that we come to church on Sunday and then we live our lives. Like, isn't that how it works? We come to church on Sunday, we pay our tithes, we worship a few, we listen to the Bible for a little bit, and then we go on and we actually live life. If that's your mentality, you're missing everything. Everything that happens here is given to you for one reason, to live it out there. And that's where you as parents have to be able to help your children understand how to integrate their faith in the real world, in everyday circumstances, everyday situations. And then number 4, you model for your children what it looks like to be a Christian, what it looks like to have Jesus as Lord in your life. And you know what that modeling, a lot of it is? Some of us, that really threatens us because we know who we are. Hey? We know how fallen we are. We know how much we fail. We know how broken we are. And so we try to hide all that. Listen, that's the worst thing you could do. That's the beauty of the gospel. He saved you when you're broken. He gives you grace for every day. When you blow it, Mom, and you scream and yell. Oh, nobody from here would do that. Hello? Moms? Am I talking to anybody? Can I visit your house? Dads, when you lose it, when you're not present, here's the deal. We own it. We tell our children. Our children know we're not behaving the way that Jesus would want us to behave. They get it better than we do. But boy, I want to tell you, when a parent owns it, when they recognize how I handled that, how I spoke to your mom, how I spoke to you right now, I lost my patience. I know that that's not what God would have me to do, and I'm asking you to forgive me. I'll tell you what, my children learned Jesus as much through my failures and the admission of my failures as they did with my strengths. I want to tell you that. Now, I want to leave you with a testimony. Some of you have seen parts of this testimony before, but I don't want you to get mixed up for a minute. Because some of you go, oh my goodness, listen to this preacher talk, and here he is. He knows the Bible backwards and forwards, in and out. No wonder he's got a family that's amazing. Listen, I want to tell you, I would blow your brains away to tell you what God has done in my family. The things that God is doing in my family are so incredibly fantastic that I'm not even going to tell you about them, because it had just seemed like I was a terrible braggart. Here's what I want you to understand. I want you to understand where I came from, because there is no one in this house that cannot know the blessing that I've known. And I'm only telling you those things because I want it for you. My father, that's my father, Robert Henry Cavanaugh. He was killed in a plane crash when I was 16 months old. That's my mother, Dorothy Lucille. She was married 4 times. I was a latchkey kid. My stepfather ran off with my uncle's wife when I was in grade 4. Everything about our lives was mixed up, fouled up, and dysfunctional. I didn't have any idea how to be a father, a husband. I didn't have any idea of anything. In fact, at 17 years old, I was fatherless, I was faithless, I was hopeless in life. I had no hope about life. I was helplessly lost. I was struggling with alcohol, I was addicted to pornography, and I loved to gamble. Now tell me what kind of a father that's going to make. Who would have liked to have been married to me? Any of you ladies? I would hope not. On top of that, I was very violent and extremely abusive with my mouth. Not the works of a good husband, not the works of a good father, but I want to tell you that's not the end of the story, because this guy found that guy. And that guy, he's the reason. He's the reason that everything can turn around. No matter who you are and no matter where you've come from, no matter what kind of family background, no matter what kind of father you had or didn't have, no matter what your mother was like or wasn't like, no matter what's going on even now in your life, he's the reason. I want to tell you, it is the resurrection power that when you receive him comes into you that begins to actually give you the power to change. And so this guy became that disciple. That disciple became that young preacher. I want to tell you, I had no idea that I could preach. I had no idea that I would preach. In fact, I thought that was the craziest thing on earth. I wasn't smart enough to preach. I wasn't gifted enough to preach. But God called me to preach and gave me gifts and blessed me in it. That young preacher became that husband. I didn't know how to love that woman. I didn't know how to care for that woman. I didn't know how to treat that woman, but I had Jesus in my heart. And even though I made all kinds of mistakes, never did any of this perfectly, friends. Jesus is the reason. Jesus brought transformation. That husband became that father. I didn't know how to be a dad. I didn't know how to love those boys. I'd never been loved as a kid in my life. Had no idea, but Jesus was in my heart. Jesus became the reason that I had to love those boys. That father became that grandfather. Those are my 9 grandchildren. That father became the clan member and head of that tribe to the glory of God. And I want to tell you what, friends. How did we do it? Only by the power of God. But here's the deal. This is how it always happens. We taught our children Jesus. We taught them Jesus when we sat down. We taught them Jesus when we were on a walk. We taught them Jesus when we were hiking. We taught them Jesus when we were driving. We taught them Jesus when they were going to bed. We taught them Jesus when they were waking up. We taught them Jesus. And as a result, we have 3 sons that are following hard after Jesus in their lives and leading families that are growing in the nurture and admonition of the Lord and understanding and growing in the power of God. Nobody perfect, but everybody seeing God do things that only God could do. Friends, I don't tell you these things so that I can pat myself on. I tell you these things because I want this for you, because I know God wants this for you. He wants you to have a family that flourishes. He wants you to have a family that worships. He wants you to have a family that serves. He wants you to have a family where there is great joy. He wants you to be able to say with the Apostle John, I have no greater joy than this, than to see my children walking in the faith. That's what he wants for you. Do you want that for you? Because I've just shared with you the way it goes.